So the much touted Mortal Kombat movie reboot is finally out, and I'm here to give you my unbiased, unfiltered opinion. Now, I've never really done a movie review on this channel, but given how much the channel focuses on Mortal Kombat, I thought it would be fair to review it here. Don't expect this to be a super professional, in-depth movie review, but rather a quick hit on my thoughts on the movie. I will tell you straight up here at the start two things. The first thing is I did not like or enjoy this movie. I think it is extremely milquetoast and it has a whole host of problems accompanying it. The second thing is that there will be full spoilers included in this review. So if you still want to see the movie and judge for yourself first, pause, go check out the movie, and then come back. To start out, the story for this movie is a disjointed mess, and the whole thing reeks of executive meddling. Most Mortal Kombat media made for large audience consumption tends to be focused on the first tournament because it's the simplest to understand for outsiders. There's a tournament. If the protagonist wins, Earth is saved. If not, the Earth is destroyed. Even the most cynical executive meddler can understand this. The movie opens up with a backstory of Scorpion and Sub-Zero, which is totally fine, as these are some of Mortal Kombat's most recognizable palette swaps. But then it shifts focus away from boring, tired characters like Scorpion and Sub-Zero that no one cares about, to focus on a new a new main character named Cole Young that was created just for this movie. Cole Young is a big part of what's wrong with Mortal Kombat 2021. His entire existence reads like he's the director's self-insert character or something. He's a washed-up MMA fighter who ends up being Scorpion's relative. Now, I'll admit it, I used to go on fanfiction.net during the days of youth. I even had friends who wrote Kingdom Hearts self-insert fanfiction. Everyone knows this trope. You want to be the cool hero, but you also want to be the protagonist. So what do? You make yourself his cousin, his son, his long-lost ancestor, a new disciple, whatever it is. The characters in this movie get their special moves from the game later on in the movie, and since Cole wasn't in the game, they had to come up with a power for him, and it's literally plot armor. He gets magic plot armor that protects him from damage. It's so strong, he can even 1v1 Goro and come out on top. Ranting about Cole Young aside, the movie follows a predictable pattern after the first act. Cole is attacked by Sub-Zero because he has a magic little dragon tattoo on it, which the movie literally says, and I quote, a birthmark that he was born with. Jax shows up to save his Mary Sue self and tells him to find Jax's partner Sonya, who has been investigating people with the dragon tattoos and what they mean. In one of many scene transitions with no travel time, explanation as to how they got there, or logical sense thrown in, Cole magically arrives at Sonya's base on the set of what looks like an episode of the Trailer Park Boys. It's a trailer out in the middle of nowhere. I've never seen the show, okay? Give me a break. Cole finds out that Sonya Blade, who has already conveniently captured Kano, already knows all about the tournament, the tattoos, Outworld, and everything else needed to check a box on a plot exposition list movie development milestone meeting. The three of them are attacked by a very reptilian-looking reptile who still manages to be as bad or worse than his 90s movie counterpart. One dead reptile later, courtesy of I'm a Big Kid protagonist now Kano, the team states that they must go find Raiden. Faster than Emeril Lagasse can say bam in the 90s, the next scene is immediately the three of them walking through the desert again with no explanation of how they got there, how they knew where it was, or how Kano, a supposedly wanted Interpol criminal, got through security at the airport. The way this movie crosses geography with no concern given to why or how far makes the last two seasons of Game of Thrones look like it was written by Alexander Van Humboldt. Look him up. While wandering in the desert, Liu Kang shows up, fresh out of being kicked out of the Protagonist Club, and helps them to find Raiden's temple. Raiden pretty much says everyone but Liu Kang and Kung Lao suck at life, and they have to train to find their arcana, which is how this movie attempts to explain the special powers fighters have in the games. Shang Tsung shows up with a random smattering of characters from all over, and I do mean all over, the Mortal Kombat universe, and attacks them. But Raiden uses his Asari powers to project a shield around the building a la Mass Effect 2 to keep that naughty Shang Tsung out. Instead of an 80s training montage, Kano gets very mad, much anger, and shoots a laser out of his eye, exactly one eye, as his arcana. Wow, I didn't see that coming. Meanwhile, the rest of the cast finds their arcana except for Cole, who is promptly told to piss off by Raiden because he is an embarrassment to the Mary Sues that came before him. Also, Jax comes back. Sub-Zero froze his arms off because they couldn't afford to license Sub-Zero and Ermac for this movie, And Raiden gives him some sweet metal arms that the White Lotus Society found in some other realms or something. Don't worry, it isn't important. Anyway, back at the trailer park, Cole's family is attacked by Goro because Shang Tsung, an ancient wizard with thousands of lifetimes lived, knew that the champion of Outworld, the four-armed Goro, would certainly not end up being killed by an upstart, washed-up MMA fighter who doesn't even have his arcana. Sadly, even Shang Tsung makes mistakes, and predictably, Cole proceeds to unlock his literally magic plot armor arcana, which allows him to kill Goro. The first tournament hasn't even started in this movie, and they've already killed off the major reveal of the first tournament. Well done, Warner Brothers. Cole also uses some Game of Thrones magic to jet-set Radio Future himself back to Raiden's temple, which is promptly attacked by Shang Tsung and the boys. Also, a big surprise, Kano betrays everyone and breaks the shield Samara put up over the temple, and Raiden uses his space magic to teleport everyone to the Shadow Realm where he says Shang Tsung can't follow them. Because he's just the best ever, Cole says that they should trick the Outworld fighters into fighting them one-on-one. Because this movie is literally nothing but surprises, they do exactly that, with Cole fighting against Sub-Zero, who has of course captured his family, to raise the stakes. Cole kinda sucks versus Sub-Zero until he uses Hanzo Hasashi's kunai that Raiden gave him earlier to summon the actual Scorpion, you know, the one people care about from the game, like he's a Final Fantasy summon or something. The two of them predictably beat Sub-Zero up, complete with some cringe dialogue where Scorpion says, "I'm Scorpion," but all of it's in Japanese except for the word Scorpion thrown in there.
General Scales, Hiku, Kohud, or Taskuki, Eve Dinosaur Planet.
So this Japanese man that died in the 17th century, presumably only speaking Japanese his whole life, comes back from the dead and decides to start referring to himself with the English noun Scorpion randomly. It makes perfect sense. Anyway, Spectre Scorpion does his MK1 fatality on Sub-Zero, Cole rescues his family from the ice, Shang Tsung promptly screws off back to the Outworld, promising to come back with an army, and the movie has the audacity to pretend it's going to get a sequel by teasing Johnny Cage, who was left out of the movie for reasons. That's the gist of the story. My description probably makes more sense than it does when you actually watch the film itself, just because it moves at an absolutely breakneck pace. It just keeps changing in one long, incredibly unbroken set of scenes, moving from scene to scene so that no one has a chance to understand it. It's really quite hypnotic. Besides the breakneck pace, the movie has its share of other problems. Executive meddling was definitely at play here. It's that old problem where the actions and abilities of a character make sense in the source material, but they're afraid to just go with it for a general audience, so there has to be some sort of contrived explanation for everything. I'm fairly certain the original movies had things like Sub-Zero shooting ice, Scorpion's spear, and Raiden's lightning, and they were just there. Johnny Cage early in the movie makes a statement about all these things being extraordinary as a way for the viewer to just be like, hey, go with it, it's going to be okay. But they felt the need to shimmy up something called Arcana in this movie, which is basically superpowers for people that get the magic dragon tattoos, that the movie also shoehorn in as a way of explaining who is chosen for the Mortal Kombat tournament. They use that same tired old plot point of digging into your emotions, or finding something you care about, or discovering your inner strength to get to your Arcana. It's all just unnecessary, and it somehow makes all the Arcana powers look extremely lame. They should have just had people throw fireballs and not say anything about it, or maybe make very little fuss over it. It would have been more enjoyable to the end viewer, I think. Character choice and use were also very strange to me. The movie has the audacity to leave out a Mortal Kombat 1 staple like Johnny Cage, replace the protagonist Liu Kang with Cole Young, as well as pull in very odd character picks like Reiko, Nitara, and Kabal. I realize that Kabal is way more popular than Reiko and Nitara, but he's very involved with MK3's story, not Mortal Kombat 1's. So bringing him in early feels like the movie is either a one-off or they're going to have trouble with plot points later on. All in all, the character choices feel like someone in a boardroom went on Twitter, searched hashtag Mortal Kombat, and looked at the characters that people beg Ed Boon for every day on Twitter, and that's who they put in the movie. Many characters are also outright killed in the movie despite their importance to later plot events in the Mortal Kombat timeline. Goro is probably the most egregious of these. Having him killed rather than just wounded or forced to retreat sounds like a major mistake on the producer's part. They did have the balls, however, to kill off Melina, despite having been on Ed Boon's Twitter, so kudos to them for that. For the most part, the action sequences are at least serviceable, and the movie does have the MK franchise's trademark violence. There are classic versions of old-school Mortal Kombat fatalities included, which was a good decision in my eyes. Mortal Kombat 11's fatalities are just drawn-out torture sequences at this point, and the quick, efficient fatalities of the older games lend themselves better to something more realistic like the atmosphere the movie attempts to portray. I didn't know any of the actors in this film, but that's not a bad thing either. The original movies didn't use triple A-list actors, and it was honestly the more better for it. To conclude, MK 2021 had potential, and there are some bright spots here and there, but for the lack of plot, horrible pacing, and attempts to explain things to non-fans ultimately drag it down. If you and the boys are looking for your MK movie fix, wait till this one hits TV or Netflix and check it out. Unless you already have the HBO subscription, then what do you have to lose other than your time?